Hello again. Today we'll learn about module number 2, the work of an editor. What does editor do? Okay, and here is the overview of the whole lesson. So after the first lesson, you may be a little bit confused between the two jobs, the two terms editing and revising. So editing means reading a text and then correcting the text itself. This text is just a given text. It is not a translation. It is a text originally written by someone else. We call the author. Making and then correcting or even improving anything that is needed to achieve some concept of quality that we have in the first lesson. In some cases, the text may happen to be a translation, but the editor either doesn't know this or does not but treats the text as if it were not a translation. For example, someone familiar with the subject matter of a machine-produced translation may edit it without consulting the source text or even knowing the source language. By revising, I mean correcting, suggesting any correction or improvements again, but not for a text given. Instead, for a translation, the translators translate something written by the author, and then the reviser edits the translations, which says revisers. An editor may take different work positions. Here are some of the examples. For example, a sample, prepare, adapt an article or a book so that it is suitable for publication. Sometimes editor can prepare analysis of a literary author's work, especially by researching manuscripts. Editors can be in overall charge of the content and arrangement for a newspaper or journal as well. Then we have the editor-in-chief, tổng biên tập in Vietnamese, right? And the next thing, editor can rewrite something using different words, revise or alter a text to correct, alter the emphasis. So, editors have many duties, and different editors have very different duties. An editor's daily routine will be rather different from a newspaper from what it will be at the office of a firm publishing a medical journal. If you work in a newspaper, you are an editor, then you will be different from the editor who work in a firm that publishes a medical journal. The description of a particular editor's job might include one or more of the following. An editor's work will also vary greatly with the type of writer being edited. It depends on the type of writing, the type of writer as well. An editor of literary text is very different from an editor of academic text. So what can we see in the screen here? Ways in which a text might be defective. So we have to decide what kinds of materials will be published. We have to find or assign writers and handle relations with them. We have to evaluate the suitability of manuscript and recommend changes in content, in style, or in organization. The other times, we have to deal with the reviewers. We have to schedule the publication process, design page layouts, mark up manuscripts, ensure permission has been obtained to use copyrighted material. You have to contact the original writers and ensure his or her permission. you have to manage the financial and material resources as well. And lastly, a man of fixed text, which is submitted by a writer. So here are some of the jobs of the duties for an editor. And editors can be also classified using type of editing. Then we have 4 types of editing. In this book, there are 5 types to be exact. Apart from the 4 types, you can see the screen now. The last type is chance editing. However, it is just a kind of combination between the first 4 types, so we will not have it seen here. Now, let's look at this table so that you can distinguish well the 4 types of editing. Copy editing is when you correct some text so that it can be in conformity with some kind of rules, preset rules, and you have to ensure that the text has consistency in terms, in numbering, in appearance as well. So copy editing is a kind of quite mechanical. You correct some kind of mistakes that your naked eyes can see easily. It can be a typing error, it can be a misspelling, it can be the bold or italicized headings, whether or not it is bold or italicized at the same level in the whole book. The second type is stylistic editing. For this one, the text itself looks quite good, no typing errors, no misspellings. However, if you read it, you can see some kind of awkward understanding. You cannot understand a text at all, or sometimes there is an information, a piece of information that sounds so weird, that do not have any relation with the text before and after it. It is the style, right, editing. In this case, the editor has to improve a text by tailoring the use of glossary and expressions, as well as create a readable text after fixing sentences that are constructed awkwardly. Think of the essays again. If an essay is not coherent at all, then we need stylistic editing. The third type is structural editing. You have to restructure a text, reorganize a text to achieve a better order of presentation, or to have the readers by signaling the text. You give some numbers so that they know which to go, where to go, which to start with. So now for the last type, content editing. The key word here is content. You edit something that is belonging to the knowledge, the content. Then you can suggest some additions or some deletion to the being edited text. For example, you are editing some of a mathematical text, and you see that there's a kind of very illogical text here. 1.1 not equals to 2. Then you correct it. That is content editing. For the overall scheme of documentation preparation for publication, there are different stages. Firstly, you work in a team with a division of labor, and in each level there can be a senior editor, a subject matter reviewer, and a proofreaders. So you write something and you edit it, or you edit something for someone else. There is another person to check the work for you, senior editors. After the editing and the checking. You have someone to review. We say the subject matter reviewer, and the last one is a proofreader, đọc soát. By this point of view, editing, rewriting, and adapting are sometimes often confused, and you should be able to tell the differences between the three types. Editing is when we correct a text to make it better because it has mistakes. But rewriting is when a text has no mistakes in terms of spelling or maybe punctuation. So that text is badly written because of the wording, and you have to abandon the existing wording and re-express the writer's content, writer ideas with newly composed sentences and even a new text structure. This is rewriting. Look at the example. The original text reads like this: the comparison is much regretted, but a large vehicle fleet operator restriction in mileage has now been made imperative in meeting the demand for petrol economy. If you are not working in the transportation, I think it's going to be very hard for you to understand. So it has a kind of features that looks like this. It can be understood by the specialist. It poses no problem at all for the specialist in road transportation, but for an outsider like us, you cannot understand well this text, right? Then this text shall be rewritten like this one. We much regret having to do this. That is the same as this compulsion is much regretted. But we have been obliged to greatly reduce the use of our fleet of large vehicles. Reduce the use of our fleet of large vehicles. Something like this, made imperative. So you can see that rewriting is when we want to rewrite the whole text given. We do not edit anything. We do not mark anything and suggest any kind of correction. We will be the writer to rewrite everything again, right? For editing, you have to mark or make some suggestion here, and leave the job of writing to the original writer. But rewriting is when you want to take the job of the rewriter, we rewrite it. How about adapting? You can see both editing and rewriting aim to create a text that is maximally suitable for the original intended audience. Sometimes, however, people do not want to replace the old badly written document with the one that is much better written. Instead, they want to prepare an additional document for a new audience, and in this case we have the activity adaptation. It may involve either complete recomposition, as in the above example of rewriting, or relatively minor rewording of existing sentences, as in editing. So where adaptation will require a text to be completely recomposed. Look at the examples. The English legal documents are original and they are suited to the readership, like the lawyers and the judges. They have a features of writing that can eliminate or clear any vagueness and ambiguity. However, the English legal documents are very hard to read by a layman, by non-layers. So we have to adapt or even rewrite, right? So that it can be readily understood by any people. And another case, adaptation will require minor rewording. Um, like this, we have a text and it is written for a British audience or just an American audience. So Vietnamese learners of English may not understand that text well because they are not that native, right? In this case, we should reword something, rewordify, right? Reword some of the glossaries so that a broader audience, the whole world, the international readers, can understand. So we have to address the broadest possible. We have a terminology note here. The terms adapt and rewrite have been used here to denote activity within a single language. The terms are also used with a variety of meanings and translation theories. Now we have mental editing during translation. Um, when we are editing or revising as an editor and translator, we have to, in our minds, think a lot, right, about how to do, what to correct. We say that kind of in-mind activity, mental stylistic editing, and mental structure content editing. Look at the examples. In the source text, they are all of the words with a problem, and in our mind, you have to think of the rewritten text. Necessary prerequisites. The word prerequisite already includes the meaning of necessary, so delete necessary. Fish and animals. If we use fish and animals, then is fish parallel, equivalent, okay, to animals, or if it's a subset of animals? Alright, so we should add other before animals, with a view to the need for a clear definition of the concept of violence at the very outset of the preventive work, and exclusive definition to be preferred. Wow, this text is very nominalized, a lot of noun phrases here. You should rewrite like the first step instead of the very outset in prevention of the preventative work. Is to define violence clearly instead of with a view to the need for a clear definition of the concept of violence, right? And the definition should be an inclusive one. Okay. In chapter 4, 5, 6, and 7, you learn about permissible range of editing, and normally we will pare down the correlated verbal sentences, and we will eliminate the high flow vocab or jargon that are normally used by a bureaucratic writing. In other cases, we have to edit the English that are not native, we call non-native English. That can be the English from another person of nationality, like by a French scientist. In French, the noun here, right, have the numbers, but in English, normally we don't have that kind of grammar. Just brain, body mass, not brains or bodies mass. Who edits best and why among the three people? A native speaker, a translator, a source language speaker or writer? Of course, the one who can edit best is the translator, because he can master two languages at the same time. Alright.